Happy Monday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order 4-0 edition. Bucks are cruising along. A big test versus the Iowa Hawkeyes in the shoe this Saturday, 3:30. A blackout, gray out, whatever, something out. Game is coming. This will be a nice test for us as we head into the game everyone's been waiting to see. The Oregon Ducks hosting the Bucks has been a few years in the making since the COVID year. So we're going to get into a lot of this stuff. This is going to be this is a huge show. We're going to go through some of the talking points at the it's not the quarter mark, it's more of the first period intermission, because it's 4 out of the 12 regular season games. We were through 4-0, a 2-week sprint right here. I've been talking about it. 2-week sprint. You got Iowa, you got Oregon. 2 weeks to get to that bye week, kind of recalibrate, refresh, self-scout, go through that whole rigmarole and get the team ready to roll for the stretch run. Again, I love how the schedule's set up. Again, I've said it 1,000 times, but whoever made the schedule must be a huge Ohio State fan, because it is about as good as we can get for playing a team like Oregon, West Coast game, bye week right after. I love that. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to talk expansion. There's some huge breaking expansion news we're going to get into with Nevadabuck. But first, if you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. We'll do some film breakdowns tonight as well. I'll take your questions, your super chats. Our super chats are going to pay it forward. It is the season of giving. We are giving a lot of these deals away to our armed service folks, people that are protecting this country. Obviously, there's a lot of interesting times in the Middle East with some of the stuff going on over there. So pray for our troops. You know, we have a lot of support throughout the region. And again, we assist a lot of countries. So think about all of our great people that are abroad, serving this country, keeping us safe, doing the best they can to maintain order in the world. So think about those folks. Think about our police officers, our first responders, especially in light of the hurricane. Also, we're thinking about any of our Scoop family that are down in the hurricane regions. Again, it's been awful. I've been dealing with some of that stuff, talking to some friends down there. It's been horrendous. And again, we're thinking about you guys. Hope that you guys can get back to whole as quick as possible. But again, we appreciate you guys so very much. If you guys will do something awesome for us, again, we are growing our podcast formats on Apple Podcasts specifically and Spotify. Search on your iPhone or your iPad, Buckeye Scoop, click subscribe. It takes 15 seconds. It is a humongous help for us. Again, we're trying to grow it. It's a little itty bitty part of our thing right now, and we're just trying to make it a little bit more rounded, because our YouTube is a monster at this point, and our audio, we're trying to make it a little bit better. So even if you guys prefer our video format on YouTube, just subscribing on Apple Podcasts is just absolutely fantastic, and it really helps us a lot. So consider doing that if you want to help out Buckeye Scoop and help us out a little bit. And again, it's completely free. With that being said, going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, team looks fantastic. There is a lot of rumbling about the SEC and the Big Ten finally, becoming married in the scheduling game, just because we've got, we've got this inertia now of the potential NFL setup. We've been talking about this for months, where it's going to be AFC, NFC, SEC, Big Ten, super conferences. You see all these smaller conferences kind of forming, and I think it'll end up being like they'll have like the superpower division, then you'll have the middle division, then you'll have 1AA. How do you see that working with the SEC and the Big Ten? Because again, I think that those two realize that it's time to get serious, and again, if that means hurting feelings of some of the smaller schools and breaking away, they'll do that, because frankly, there's too much money to be made. And I think that the top crust of college football wants to be getting closer to that NFL level of profitability. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, before I'm going to get into that, I'm actually going to deviate, because there's like breaking news that were coming out that again, nothing earth-shattering from a bigger picture standpoint, but the Big Ten has changed the rule on how they call offsides on these onside kick plays after the Michigan-Minnesota game. They admit that they blew the call at the end of the Minnesota-Michigan game, and there was that the guy should not have thrown the flag, and they've changed the rule, which, again, credit to Tony Petitti for jumping on this stuff immediately in terms of doing it. But can you freaking believe that we all knew it. They're watching real time. I mean, Michigan is so awful, but they got so lucky. But the Big Ten actually changed the rule as a result of that blown call on Saturday. But anyway, I wanted to throw that in there, because I thought that was particularly of note. Did you watch that? Were you watching that play in real
Uh,
time, or did you just kind of catch the replay?
no, I was watching it, and again, I didn't live something that was that dramatic. But again, when we lost to Illinois in 2007, that officiating crew got suspended like a week later. That entire crew got suspended because there were some very interesting calls in that game. And again, they beat us. Again, this is not sour grapes, but when you lose and there's a lot of strange calls, and then all of a sudden, they get clipped for, potentially being involved with a gambling ring, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense because seemingly we were getting no calls and Illinois was getting every call. And again, as you know, Nevada, you run in gambling circles, and you know how officiating, we've talked ad nauseum about soccer, one penalty kick and you get two penalties, all of a sudden it's over two pretty easy, or over one goal, whatever. Officials have a large say in the game. And when you get down to a crucial moment like that, and again, Minnesota would still have to score, but God bless, it's like, they're in the big house and they have a chance to have a program changing win. And instead it gets ripped out of their hands by incompetent officiating in the era of replay, which again, it's kind of, again, I hate that we talk about officials as much as we do on the show, but the Virginia Tech Miami game call I thought was horrendous, where the kid clearly has the ball, his butt is on the ground, the ball's not moving, touchdown, and then the Miami guy rips it out after the guy already has control. So it's like, that's a touchdown. It doesn't matter if you're down on the ground with your arms around the ball and plays over, it's done. And a guy touches you, plays over, it's done, touchdown. And they overturn that, which I thought was insane. And then we have this onside kick call where the kid's clearly not offsides, and then your boy Joel Trent Klatt is on there saying, "Oh, well, he's clearly offsides here," and because he should get fired too. I'd fire him and fire that whole officiating crew. But what are your thoughts? Because again, I hate when officials cheat the kids, and I've seen it before. I've lived it as a coach. Went to the replay booth at the Gator Bowl and was banging on the door because when Boom Herron got the ball ripped out of his hand, he had the ball. The ball's like this in his arms. His butt cheeks were on the ground, and the Florida Gator guy rips it out, and they call it a fumble. And I'm looking at the screen on ESPN. I was like, oh, there's no way this is a fumble. They're replaying it, and the call stood, and they called it a fumble. And I left because again, all the coaches were fired anyway, so they couldn't do anything to me. Banging on the door. And I said, you guys are effing kids. You guys know that, right? And so bang, they weren't real happy with it. I didn't care. The whole staff's fired. I didn't care. Urban wasn't going to hear about it. But I hate officials that put the game in their own plan. I hate when they're incompetent, and they should be fired immediately. Because again, that hurts PJ Fleck. That hurts the kids. And again, I don't even like PJ Fleck. But again, if he gets fired, which I don't think he will, and he could have beaten Michigan, which is a top, 15 team, like that gives you a little longer leash if you're close to being on the chopping block, which I'm not saying he is, but if you win that game, all of a sudden it changes the narrative around your team for the entire season. It's a game that those seniors will always remember, but didn't happen. So, but what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, no, I think officiating, I don't think officiating has ever been worse than it is in 2024, and I don't really know why. I would think with technology, with training, with accountability, the reviewing calls, that these guys would get better and better, and it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And so sometimes that inures to Ohio State's benefit, sometimes it goes to our detriment. But officiating is not good, and that call just to miss a call. And I always think you've got to know the moment, and because I umpired myself growing up. That was not how I supported myself when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. Would be umpiring baseball primarily. And I mean, if it's a big call, you got to know the situation. Then you have to be sure if you're going to change the game. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to change the game on something, you're going to throw an offside flag on an onside kick that is recovered by Minnesota. And that thing was way down the field. It was like the 25-yard line or something like that. Man, you better be sure. That guy better have been really offside. And for them to blow that and miss calls like that. And I just don't understand how they – now, that one, bad call, we can talk about that forever. I just don't know how you miss on replay. Replay is really, really simple. It is indisputable video evidence of error. Indisputable means no two reasonable people that are dispassionate, that are not biased, could look at the play and see it differently. No two people. So if you have more than two people that can see something differently, it's no longer indisputable, and you have to stay with the call on the field. So that's reserved for, is his foot on the line? Did the ball go out of bounds? I mean, stuff that there is no dispute amongst reasonable people. But on these opinion calls about did the ball hit the ground or was his knuckle underneath the ball? Man, that is a total wrong use of replay, in my opinion, and they should do away with it because it's being replay is being used incorrectly right now, and there's no standard, there's no reason for how they're doing things, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, and breaking Pete Rose just passed away. Wow, that's crazy. 83 years old. They just broke about 15 minutes ago. Dikembe Mutombo passed away too, so this is a wild day. I mean, Pete was obviously a different type of cat, but I just got that text. I appreciate you guys that text me the updates. Nevada, any thoughts on Pete Rose? Again, he was about as polarizing as you could ever get because dude went hard. He was talented, but he was a troubled soul off the field. Any thoughts on Pete Rose?
Yeah, two very. I hate speaking ill of anybody after they're dead, but I never forgave him for hitting Ray Fosse in the All-Star game. As an Indians fan, that was just something that even as a kid, it just bothered me. Having said that, as I grew older and I saw 4,192 hits or something like whatever that was, that is such an obscene stat. I play this game called Immaculate Grid with my kids, where you look at things and they have different things like 300 average and hit 50 home runs, or they different things you got to fill in the boxes, and just to get to 200 hits in a season is just impossibly hard. It's just like that is such rare air, and to think that you'd have to do that for 22 straight years to break his hit record. I mean, I just don't have any words. I mean, it's a loss. I feel bad that I feel bad that he wasn't in the Hall of Fame, because I know that was something that he wanted more than anything. And just sad. Just sad because he played the game very joyfully. His things with the gambling, and as a manager. To me, that's like a different life than him. His impact as a player, because his impact on a player was freaking amazing. So sad day for me.
Yeah. And I just noticed that as I was looking up, there's a lot of articles, and again, I'm not going to go too deep down the rabbit hole of the officiating stuff, but this Steve Parman guy was the lead official the night that we lost to Illinois. Now, again, they beat us, is what it is. But this is a guy that Yahoo literally came out and said, this guy had filed bankruptcy and had amassed $429,000, and two of the creditors were casinos. He allegedly gambled at casinos back to the 80s. Was charged with beating his girlfriends. Fired from the Chicago Police Department after two female officers accused him of sexual harassment. Just a bad guy. And then. It says Parman and the 7-man officiating team that he oversees came under fire after a series of controversial calls during a game between Penn State and Purdue November 3rd, which was the week before our game. Afterward, Purdue coach Joe Tiller, filed an official complaint with the Big Ten. Their performance reportedly led Big Ten to suspend the crew for the final week of the regular season, but the suspension took effect November 17th, so the conference allowed the officials to work a game between Illinois and Ohio State. The embattled crew prompted more criticism for a call in the game that led to Illinois' first touchdown. It was a clear fumble, and the replay official didn't stop the game. Like, the guy drops the ball on the ground, we recover it, and again, they don't call it. So, I mean, it was, again, I don't live in the world of blaming officials. We lost. Illinois beat us that day. This is not Kirk, whatever. But it's like, come on. Like, this guy their crew, like, again, there's stupidity in life. And then there's, these guys, we're going to suspend these guys, but we're going to let them work. We're going to suspend it for the last game of the regular season. We're going to work this game between the number one country team in the country, which was us. And again, it was, and then there's the Dispatch. They had this article because this was also from the 8th, where it talked about, this was the play. So early in the game, November 10th, Illinois Illini running back Daniel Dufresne fumbled the ball at the end of an 80-yard run at the Ohio State 3-yard line. The ball squirted into the end zone and might have been recovered by the Buckeyes. Side judge Joe Duncan allowed Illinois to keep possession, marking the ball out of bounds. As Illinois lined up for the next play, ABC showed a replay, and commentator Bob Greasy said there's no doubt the ball came out and it was a fumble. Illinois went on to score. And then the Big Ten coordinator of officials, Dave Perry, said that he was watching the game from the conference's office in Chicago and was upset that the instant replay officials did not stop the play. And he said, absolutely, I've got to be careful what I said, but strong measures were taken. It was not a happy command center at that moment. So again, this was this was amazing. I was like, so these guys were suspended for for the Indiana Purdue game, which was the last game they were supposed to work, but they let them work our game. So it was, it was one of those things where, and then Tress, of course, being, the senator, said, Ohio State coach Jim Tressel said that he heard the replay crew was having some technical difficulties with the equipment, which is why they didn't review the play. So again, sour grapes, whatever you call me, crybaby, whatever. But it's just like this crew literally got suspended for the final game of the season, but then they let them work another game. I'm like, why would the suspension not take place immediately? Go ahead,
Kirk. The great thing about that story was the reason they got suspended the week before was for throwing too many flags. They threw like 32 flags in the game, like 17 against Illinois and 15 against Penn State. And that's what they got suspended for. So then they came into the Illinois-Ohio State game and decided we're not going to call anything. So the crowd, I'm sure you remember, you were playing, but I remember watching, and the crowd was just getting incensed because they would not call anything in Illinois. And the first penalty they called in Illinois was like a procedure penalty or something that they had to call, where the guy came out of his stance early or something.
A false start.
And false start. They finally called it, and the crowd just let up this huge roar over this thing. But they got hit for calling too many flags, and it was just so funny because you knew what they were like is F you, Big Ten. We're not going to throw a single flag in this next game, and that's what they did, and it ended up costing you guys. But anyway, well, so swell. You guys ended up in the national championship game anyway, which is still weird, impossible, and that took every possible different type of thing, and Dave Wansworth throwing his crutches on the field during the West Virginia Pitt game, and Wanstead or whatever that was.
I think they fired him after that game too. He went down and beat. I think he went down and beat like the number 2 team in the country, and then they fired him. Pitt. And he was. I thought Wanstead was a good coach. They had LaShawn McCoy, and they had a bunch of really good players on that team. So
Shady was good that day.
Yeah, but this is why, to me, I think that as we get closer to the SEC and the Big Ten basically joining and becoming kind of basically the NFL, whatever they call it, and then they'll have the SEC and the Big Ten, and you'll have all these great cross matchups. I think it'll be good because then all of a sudden, that conference can hire an all-star crew of officials across the entire conference, and they can regulate them. And again, ever since the Tim Donaghy stuff happened in the NBA, I mean, officials are held to a very high standard to the point where they have to. Like in the NBA, after every game, the entire officiating crew sits down and reviews the entire game. Every call they make, every call they don't make, explanations, they get graded. And that's where that's where it is for football officials now. Because again, it's not just, hey, good job, see you next week. It's like, no, because in the era of gambling, and widespread gambling, you have to audit these guys and keep them responsible. Because again, they have too much control, too much potential power to not do it. So again, everything about the SEC and the Big Ten joining forces and becoming a super conference is something that I absolutely love, and I can't wait to see, because I think it's going to happen sooner than later. Because I think that Ohio State fans will love to go down to the Grove, play Ole Miss, go down to the Swamp, play the Gators, have the Gators come up here in November. Again, everyone always fantasizes about bringing these SEC schools up into the snow, and that'll happen. And again, I think it'll be absolutely fantastic for us. I think anybody that likes going to Ohio State home games, they're not going to miss watching Western Michigan and Akron and teams that don't even have, money lines on the betting line because they're such high favorites. I think it's going to be fun to see some better games. Because again, it's it won't quite be the NFL because you'll still have the top tier, which will be, if you combine the conferences like Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, they'll be at the top tier. The bottom tier, I still don't think they'll be able to take out the top guys, but it'll be closer. It'll be a lot closer than Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, those types of schools. And those types of schools, I think, are going to struggle immensely because they're not going to have these payday games where they make $1 million to come get walloped by, one of the big teams. But I'm excited about it. I think that expansion and getting one unified commissioner over top the SEC and the Big Ten that they all have to bow to, I think would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'd make it the commissioner of, it's hard to make it the commissioner of the Big Ten or the SEC. You probably need like a third party to come in and do it. That doesn't have an allegiance to either one of the conferences, but I think that would be it'd be compelling, and I think it would streamline stuff because again, the money at this point is too great. Again, the SEC, the Big Ten is the juggernaut in terms of the revenue streams from television, streaming, all these services. So, but the SEC is kind of like the newer hot conference. So when you combine the superpower and the new rising power, then you get like the best of both worlds. And I think that that's something where you'll basically have a nationwide conference. We're already coast to coast in the North with the Big Ten, but then you add the superpower of the South, and then maybe cherry pick a couple ACC teams. It's going to be must see TV every single week. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, we're not going to think timeline, but I think it's happening. Jim Tressel talked about this in 2010. He saw this coming because he was the oracle of information. But where are you at with this?
Well, I mean, there's two, not sticking points, but there's two kind of, components of this. One is that the Big Ten's insisting that the SEC, they kind of balance their schedules, that they go to 9 conference games. They don't want these, picnic games out there. They want teams to, they want there to be at least some parity in terms of scheduling so that you have to survive the rigors of 9 conference games. You can schedule whoever you want with the rest of your non-conference opponents. But right now with the SEC, it's 8. The Big Ten's 9. They want both of them to be 9. Secondly, and this is the big thing as part of this playoff. So as part of this 12-team playoff, the Big Ten and the SEC are both asking for 4 guaranteed spots in the playoff. So it'd be 4 Big Ten schools, 4 SEC schools, and then four for everybody else. And so that, however you want to cut that, if it's, a conference champion from the other 3 conferences and then one independent or one top independent or whatever you want to do it. But that's what they're asking for. So we've been talking about this for a long time. We said, when will the Big Ten and the SEC kind of, flex out and say, hey guys, you're playing in our sandbox right now. You're playing at our pleasure. This is the way we want it, and start dictating terms. Well, it's happening. So watch the number of guaranteed spots at the Big Ten and SEC, because they're already talking about the next round of playoff format, how this thing gets, do they move from 12 to 16? What do they do? But the Big Ten and the SEC want guaranteed spots in the playoff. That way they can guarantee, their schools, they're not getting shortchanged. They're not being disadvantaged by playing in these difficult conferences, because from Ohio State standpoint right now, it used to be the Big Ten, the Big Two and the little 8 or whatever it was. Now, you look around and it's like USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, Michigan. I mean, it's so tough right now in the Big Ten. It's way tougher than it's ever been before. And just adding Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA just made the path to the playoffs exponentially more difficult. Now, if they expand past that, if you add Florida State, Miami, or whatever you're doing, it's going to be an incredibly difficult journey. So they want to have guaranteed spots. So that's the big thing, is guaranteed spots, expanding the number of conference games in the SEC, kind of moving towards that balanced schedule, moving towards that big AFC, NFC super teams college football conference. And I think that'll be the next step. I think this next one will be, this current college football playoff format's got 6 years or 8 years to run. After that, it'll go to guaranteed spots for the Big Ten, SEC, and then after that, I think it could just be Big Ten, SEC. So this is a process that's probably going to happen over the next 2 decades, and that's where our ending up point's going to be.
Yeah, I think it's like I said. I mean, I think it ends up going 16 teams. Do you think there's ever a time where, if this conference gets formalized, that they break away from the NCAA?
Well, I think they're already talking about. I mean, they're talking about, that's one of the items on the thing is, the NCAA basically provides, oversight, and it provides a kind of a policing activity for college football. Now, as you've mentioned, over and over again, that also provides for college basketball, college hockey, women's lacrosse, boys golf, archery. I mean, there's a lot on their plate. And I think for football is such a special and unique animal with such special and unique issues like NIL. I mean, short of Livy Dunn, which is getting NIL stuff for reasons other than her great gymnastics acumen. They're most of the NIL, 99% of the NIL money that's going is to football players, and I think they've got to find a way to control that. They've got a way to to control against cheating of all kinds, whether it be the Michigan scandal or any other of a vast different number of ways you can do it. But I think they want to have a more dedicated and a policing activity that can get stuff done quicker, because they don't like the idea that things are taking 18 months, 24 months, 36 months to adjudicate when it needs to be immediate. Can you imagine an NFL one where it took years to decide?
Oh.
I mean, that's not how it works. And I think you'll see in the future, as you move to a czar, a commissioner, whatever you want to call the head of college football, and as you move to more of a dedicated enforcement agency, this stuff will get turned around, much quicker, and the hammer for schools like Michigan will fall a lot faster than it has in the past.
Yeah, and I also think that you've got. I always bring up the non-revenue sports because again they don't have the same issues as football. I mean, football. If you're a basketball player, a golfer, a soccer player, and you're a phenom, you can go play. I mean, you go be a professional in the NHL. Like Connor Bedard is an 18-year-old in the NHL last year. LeBron James is an 18-year-old. Now it's 19 if they got to go to school for a year. Golf, if you're a phenom, you can go right to the PGA Tour. Now you got to be a superstar, but Tiger's won in the Masters when he was early 20s. So I mean, it's if you're that dude, you don't have to sit around and you're not chained to college football for 3 years like you are with football. It's the only sport that does that. So again, they've got different rules. Now, granted, that's why I like NIL a ton, because now it's not about the bag man and it's not about taking money. Now it's all out in the open. And again, there's nothing that's made Ohio State's roster better than that. And I think that you're going to see super teams forming at Ohio State every year now, because again, when Urban Meyer was talking about this on Big Noon Kickoff, and he's never been more right about something. And when he talked about how even his great teams at Florida or the 2014 Ohio State team, there were some very weak links on those teams. I know that everyone glosses over and they're champions, but there's guys that if Urban could have replaced them, he'd have replaced them in a millisecond. And I remember his 06 Florida Gators that beat us 41-14. They didn't have a single offensive lineman that started in that game get drafted, not one, and none of them had any sort of substantial NFL career either. So again, like if Urban could have gone out with NIL money and bought a bunch of first round picks and put them on that team, then who knows how good that. Chris Leak did not get drafted. Like, I mean, if he could have had a senior, a Riley Leonard type quarterback, he would have replaced him. So now, like, if you've got a hole somewhere, you can go get a guy after the season or after even spring ball, like we did with Josh Simmons. Like, Josh Simmons is still one of the most remarkable. He's one of the most remarkable transformations I've seen, because we got him after spring ball 2 years ago. And he literally, started off with the third team the first day of camp 2 years ago. And now he's playing at an all Big Ten, if not all American level, because he's in the right program. He's gotten coached up, really good athlete, taking it more serious, playing really well. And again, he's blessed to be in a great scheme with Chip. Again, we've highlighted some of the stuff he does. He's a special movement skills guy. He's an excellent pass protector. So, again, all of that put together. And the biggest thing with him is he's just finishing blocks. He's not playing, like he's got freshly done nails. He's playing like he's part of the chain gang now, which he should be. Again, the offensive line should have a chain gang mentality. It shouldn't be a bunch of ballerinas out there. And he's starting to figure that out a little bit. And he's starting to rough some guys up a little bit. So, but I love the direction of the program. I think Ohio State would benefit from the superpower thing, just because I think that you've got, they'd be able to throw their weight around. And plus, I feel like, when you get to be Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia and Texas, like, you're not really interested in sticking around with, Akron and, Southern Mississippi, and yes, these schools that are all in the 130 Division I, they don't have the same problems. They're not even in the same universe at this point. I think that gets frustrating when you're all governed by the same rules, but you have dramatically different experiences. Like some of these guys, they don't have a food budget. They don't have the stuff that Ohio State and Georgia and Bama and free 2 meals a day and all of the little trinkets that you get when you're at one of the superpower schools. Like, it's a different world. So I don't know. Like, I think it'll be exciting when these guys break away, because again, it needs to be more like the NFL. Like in the NFL, even the poorest franchises in the NFL are in an amazing spot financially, as opposed to the top tier. But in college football, the spread's so wide that I think it makes sense for the SEC and the Big Ten to break away. Nevada, let's get into the team a little bit. Again, we're at the end of the first period. Again, the first 4 games, 4-0. You had a really good thread about our red zone efficiency. Again, Chip Kelly is as good as we'll ever have as an offensive coordinator, in my opinion. Will Howard also, multiple rushing touchdowns down in that low red area. It's not an accident that we run the quarterback, and the scheme's been fantastic, and we've got a great throw game in that low red area. Talk a little bit about the efficiency of Chip Kelly's offense down in the red zone.
Well, I mean, I always say you are what your numbers say you are, and people want, they can say, well, our schedule's been really weak and wait until this. And I think those people are really missing the point. I mean, the point is, throughout Ohio State's history, and even when you were playing, Kirk, you played some early season games against some stinkers of teams, and not every one of those games was 100-0. You know what I'm saying?
We sucked at a lot of those games.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It just happens. Some of the great 0-2 team that won the national championship just lucked their way through games against Cincinnati and other terrible teams. So, I don't ever discount a win anywhere against anybody. And then you throw on top of that a win against a Big Ten opponent on the road with Michigan State. So let's forget the schedules for a second. We have made 16 trips to the red zone. Of those 16 trips, and this was kind of spurred because there was a comment in the I was reading an article online, and it was talking about Ohio State's red zone woes. Okay, and the premise of the article was, because it took them to score on 4th down where he threw the pass to G. Scott in the end zone, that's struggling in the red zone, which is a fascinating concept. But not to bury the lead, we've made 16 trips to the red zone. We scored touchdowns on 15 of them. On the other one, we kicked a field goal. So we have scored 100% of the times that we've gotten in the red zone this year. We're number 1 in the country. The one time you guys may remember that we didn't score a touchdown was the drive where we're driving right down. We're going to score for sure, and Will Kazmarek gets the 15-yard penalty against Michigan State for giving the guy the business with the the headlock and the face wash and that whatever. That's literally the only drive we haven't scored a touchdown in the red zone. So that's how efficient we've been so far this year. And no, I am not saying we're going to score 100% of the time. Inevitably, we will not score every time. It's just a point of saying the offense is already clicking at a high level right now. It's executing at a high level. It's scheming at a high level. And, I mean, you can't do better than 16 for 16. 15 touchdowns. 15 touchdowns out of 16, trips to the red zone. 3 of those, as you mentioned, Will Howard rushing touchdowns. So, I'm not saying you can just take those out, but if you did take those out, then the numbers don't look quite so good. But you're rushing the quarterback, especially in the red zone. It's overpowered, and Chip is using that masterfully right now, and Ohio State offense really clicking.
Yeah, and like I said, in 03 we finished 4th. This was my freshman year, and I remember we beat Bowling Green 24-17 in the shoe, and that was the year that we had the entire team back except Maurice Claret. The whole team was back, and Doss was gone, but Will Allen stepped in. Will Allen was a first-team All-American. So it's like, I've seen us suck against MAC schools. San Diego State that year, we beat them 16-13. And this was a team that finished 4th in the country. We beat NC State when they had Rivers 44-38. Beat Northwestern 20-0. I mean, smashed Indiana. We beat at Penn State. We won 21-20, and Penn State sucked that year. They were probably, God, how bad was Penn State in 03? They were 1-7 in the Big Ten and 3-9 overall. And honestly, we probably should have lost that game. I remember that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen in the history of football. Ben Hartsock, who I love to death. Ben Hartsock's one of the greatest human beings, one of the greatest teammates. He dropped a ball. They threw a drag route to him, and he dove for the ball, dropped it. I mean, it's literally on the ground, laying there, trapped, and they didn't overturn it. I don't think there was replay back then. And I remember we watched that in film, and like, we don't win that game if he doesn't if they reverse that. So I mean, we were that close to losing to a 1-7 in the Big Ten outfit. So again, I've seen what bad offense looks like. Obviously in 2014 we lose to Virginia Tech, and that Virginia Tech team promptly goes out and loses to East Carolina the very next week after they beat us in the shoe. They go out and they lose to East Carolina. So, I know there are some people that love to just be miserable about everything. I'm not that guy. I've seen bad offense before. I've seen underwhelming. I've seen us not taking care of business. Now it's to the point now where when we win 55-14, people are upset because we didn't score 100 and we gave up more than 0. So, I don't know. Like I said, are there things that could be better? Of course. Did the game start off terrible on defense? Of course. Could our linebackers be better? Yeah. But sometimes you have to audit and look at all the good stuff that's going on. Like, I think our scheme is the best I've ever seen at Ohio State. I mean that sincerely. The only one that's close is Urban. In terms of running the ball, Urban in 13 was special. When Braxton was at his peak, before he got hurt and became a receiver or whatever, and Carlos Hyde was killing it, and we had that great offensive line with Jack Mewhort, Norwell, and Lindsley, and Marcus Hall, Elfline at guard, and then we had Taylor Decker starting right tackle. That was as good of an offense as we've had running the ball. Throwing game wasn't anywhere near as good as this year, in my opinion, but I don't know. Well, it's just, I think that I don't know what people really want. 'Cause I love watching this team. I think they're fun to watch. I think that they play hard. I think that they're getting better. And like I said, I think that they've left a lot of meat on the bone in terms of, and they're so good that they leave a lot of meat on the bone, and they still blow teams out, and they're still not close to where they could be, which is terrifying if you're the opponents and you're looking at how talented this is. And you got to understand, like, a kid like Jeremiah Smith is only going to get better. He's an 18-year-old freshman who's starting to, just figuring out college football, and he's only going to get better as the season goes on. Tigra and Austin Seyerveld are only going to get better. Seth McLaughlin's only going to get more comfortable and get better, and I think he's been fantastic. Again, that's why, there's stupidity, and then there's people like when Seth McLaughlin committed here, people were like, "Oh, he wasn't very good at Bama." Pro Football Focus said he wasn't very good, not a good snapper. I was like, dude, that guy is playing fantastic right now. Fantastic draft. I mean, he's a draft prospect, mid to late round guy, playing very well, stabilized that line. He's made some really, really sharp plays, running the show. And again, he's only getting more comfortable. And again, these guys, like, I feel like when you're like a Will Howard, a Quinn Shawn, a Seth McLaughlin, and you've only got 1 year here, like, I feel like you have to kind of accelerate creating a legacy to truly be beloved by Buckeye Nation, because these guys don't have 3 years, they have 1 year, and so they've got to like, I think Quinn Shawn and these guys, the way that they're playing, Seth McLaughlin, they're going to be beloved by Buckeye Nation as they go on to their pro careers, because they really are selling out and doing a great job. I mean, these guys are all in, they're playing hard, and again, it's one thing to play hard, it's another thing to play well. They're playing really hard, but they're playing very well. And it's fun to watch. Like I said, I can't sit around and be miserable watching this team, because, again, the blessing about my life at Ohio State as a player and a coach is I've been a part of teams that have been number one in the country the whole year. Of course, didn't win the ring, but got everything else. Beat Michigan, all that adulation. And I've been a part of a team that lost 7 games in 11 when I was a quality control coach. So again, I've seen the full spectrum of good and bad as a player, as a coach. And I've seen the fan base, good and bad. So, like, So when people aren't happy with how we're playing right now, I honestly wish that I could teleport them back to 2011 and make them rewatch that season when we lost 7 games and we couldn't throw the ball. We completed what we want. We beat Illinois. We had 1 completion the entire game, and somehow we won like 17-10 or something crazy. But I don't know. Nevada, I like where we're at. I like the defense. I mean, the defense is, they're giving up 10 a game for the last 3 years on average, which is probably, I'd imagine, first in the country, maybe second. And that's across everybody. But yeah, I like where we're at. I mean, what's your mentality at this point?
Well, I think you made, it's such a great point. And it's to the people that are out there that are fretting about stuff, man, I really want them to listen to this thing. And I'm not going to take you back to the Wayback Machine to 2002 or anything, because that might as well be Chick Harley and ancient history. But 2014 is still, that's still in the last 10 years. That's not so far away that you can still remember some of the players, and the games were on television and people could watch them. But ask yourself, after 4 games in 2014, was anything about that team screaming national championship? Was anything that had transpired like, well, we lost to Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech was really good, or wow, this defense is really throttling people, or no, none of it did. None of it did. And what happens? Sometimes teams come to get together, and we got together and we got hot and somehow bowed our back and shut out Wisconsin, went on to win a wild one against Alabama, and then beat Oregon, and we're the national champion and everything. But ask yourself, after 4 games, was that obvious to you? After 6 games, after 8 games, was any of that? No. So why get yourself all hung up on whether we didn't play a perfect half of football against Michigan State in a game that we won 38-7? Like, just relax, man. Just relax. No, it may not end up, the journey may not end up with a national championship or whatever, but you worrying about it or isn't going to do any good. This is a really, really talented team. We've got some, generational talent, guys that are, going to go down in the Buckeye lore, and all headed by J.J. Smith. J.J. Smith may leave here as the best player ever to wear the uniform. And that sounds crazy, but that's where he may end up. So, with all the pieces are in place, it's a great staff, as you mentioned. It's a perfect schedule. We've got everything there. So just try to enjoy it, man. The regular season's already a third over, and a lot of you are just like, well, I'm not cheering for anything until I see how we do against Oregon and Michigan. And I'm like, why would you not allow yourself to enjoy this team? This team is scoring every time they're in the red zone. This team is number 1 in defense in the country, despite their issues. It's one of the top, if not the top, teams in offense. We've improved 3rd down percentage, 4th down percentage, points per down. Every metric we've improved. So don't be miserable, man. Just sit back and enjoy the show, because the season's going to be over way too soon.
Yeah. And again, in 14, I'll never forget, I was in Vegas September 27th watching the Cincinnati game at Emerald's little stadium thing, which I think's gone now. And literally on the board, the Buckeyes to win the Natty were 75-1 to win the national championship. And again, you lay money on that, you're obviously you're cashing that ticket. But my biggest thing, again, this is a 12-team playoff. Oh yeah, I put something on that for sure. 4-team playoff, I was like, there's no way we're getting in. I don't think there's any chance. Because again, you have to understand, Virginia Tech, I don't know if they lost the next 2 games, but I know they lost the next week. No, they did. They lost. This is the thing. This is exactly why. This was my exact mindset as to why, I'm not even going to waste my money on a 75-1 Ohio State 2014 national championship ticket. Because again, they beat us 35-21. So they beat us by 2 touchdowns in the shoe. This wasn't a 1-point last. This is 2 touchdowns. This is a whooping. Next week, lose to East Carolina 28-21 in Blacksburg. Then the following week, the same day that we played Cincinnati, we were 75-1. They lose to Georgia Tech 27-24 in Blacksburg. They had back-to-back home losses after that. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, So we lost by 2 touchdowns in the horseshoe to a team that literally lost 2 straight games at home versus East Carolina and Georgia Tech, 2 unranked teams. So again, you look at this team versus that team, and but the Bucks caught fire, and they didn't lose the rest of the way, and they peaked and they smashed Wisconsin, and they got in the playoffs as the 4, and the rest was history. And again, I think that this team's got an edge to them. And again, I think that the other thing that's good about this team is they get to see that Alabama Georgia game, and they get to see Texas play Michigan. They get to see some of these big matchup games. That's like a new phrase. Everybody calls it, oh, it's a matchup game. Ooh, the big matchup game. Big matchup games. Like, because they can say, okay, we better turn up a little bit to get ready for these guys. If we want to go beat Bama and Georgia and make this a season that people actually remember, especially at a place like Ohio State. You have to understand the thing about Ohio State, and I love this. This isn't sad Kirk. This is realistic Kirk, where at Ohio State, if you don't win the national championship, your team basically doesn't exist. Again, I won the Big Ten in 05, 06. 06, we were wire to wire one until we lost to Florida. 07, finished, we were second, we were 1 in the country going into that game. So again, those are outright Big Ten championship in 06, 07, 05, we shared it. So, but none of those teams get recognized. There's no reunion. There's no, hey, come out on the field and recognize the 05 team, the 06 team, 07 team. None of that happens unless you win the national championship. And again, I'm good with that. I actually love that. Because again, like in other schools, if you win the conference title and they bring you out on the field, hey, we're going to recognize you. The end of the first quarter, waved everybody. But no, like Ohio State, the standard is amazing. And again, I've always loved that. I've loved that since my freshman year. My freshman year, we won the Fiesta Bowl. We did not win the Big Ten. We lost to Michigan that year. I didn't travel. So I was sitting in the dorm watching all of Tim Anderson and all the seniors, Craig Krenzel, watching those guys lose. Because I mean, if I don't travel, I guess it counts. But if I'm not even good enough to be on the travel team, then I really, I care, but I don't, because I'm not even in the stadium. I'm not even good enough to be in the stadium that day. But we beat Kansas State, with Darren Sproles, who is one of the most underrated players in history, and we win the Fiesta Bowl, and we did not get a ring because we didn't win the Big Ten. Now, I think Ohio State might be the only school in the nation that if you want a BCS game, and send the team out the right way and all that hubbub, that doesn't give out a ring. And again, I don't like rings. I've never worn my rings. They're in my attic somewhere. So again, it is what it is. But I was like, we just want a BCS game and all this pomp and circumstances, and we don't even get one of these little cheap, because those rings only cost like $300. They're made out of like tin. So it was just one of those funny realizations where I was like, you know what? I like that. I'm good with that. We didn't win the conference. We don't deserve a ring. I'm good with it. Because again, every other school in the nation would be printing up rings for everybody. And I see schools that print up rings for the Gator Bowl and the Tax Slayer Bowl. I mean, we actually got a ring for the Gator Bowl. The year that we lost 7 games, we got rings for that season. And I've actually seen former strength coaches wear those. And I'm like, how big of a douchebag do you have to be to wear a ring from a year where we lost 7 games and then we lost that bowl game to boot? So again, I can't sometimes, but again, that's just me going on my little rants. Nevada, you get any thoughts? And we'll start digging into some super chats.
Hey, look, we may not have the ring, but we have a tree. And for me personally, that always makes me feel good to go to look at my tree. And I'm going to visit that in November. We are going to have a tree lighting this year. So you guys say everything, bring your mulchers out.
Should we do that? Should we just have a big tree meetup? Everybody meet at the tree at high noon.
We should do
That'd
that.
Be amazing.
No, we do it like this, the Charlie Brown Christmas, and we all put our arms around it and we sing songs and stuff like that. I'm telling you, that would be unbelievable.
I think that'd be compelling TV. I think people would love to do a live show from the tree, sitting there like Indian style with little like little lanterns next to us, little microphones like this.
I could be Linus. You could wear that big Charlie Brown shirt there with the little diagonal thing through it.
Dude, I would absolutely be Pigpen. I'd have like the little dirt flying around me everywhere I went, like the big dirt cloud everywhere.
Kim can be Lucy.
Yeah, exactly. We got it all. We got it all. Funky could be the little bird. Could be Woodstock, the little bird that
Woodstock.
floats around. Yeah, that'll be funky. He'll be the little bird.
Oh god, this is
All right,
great. Yeah,
let's
tree lighting.
tree lighting. Get ready for it. Get lit at the tree. All right, David Dickerhoof. Thank you, my friend. I hope you're doing good. One of my Stark County boys. Appreciate you, brother. Thanks for the 100. Just for a good cause. Go Bucks, Nevada OH. Yeah, we've had a lot of people reaching out. Again, it's kind of a season for giving. So if you have members that you think would be consideration, our criteria is very simple. Active military, retired military, first responders, police officers, firefighters. If there's anybody that's in that category, then I apologize. But Buckeye Scoop at gmail.com. If you are under consideration or someone you know is under consideration, it will make you a membership. Again, the paid for it all goes into that. And we've added dozens of people. Again, all we ask for is a military ID, some sort of a service member ID, so that it's legit. And then, away we go. And it's been a fantastic program. It provides some relief for some people to enjoy our site. Our site is dynamic. It's a blast to be on. It's been absolutely incredible. And it's really fun right now, especially in season, because there's a lot of people coming with a lot of opinions. And Nevada and I are on there dusting it with our thoughts all the time. And it's really fun. David Dickerhoof, again, thank you for the 100, my friend. I appreciate you, brother. Nevada, any thoughts?
No, just so generous. Thank you so much. As you said, it's a great time to be a member of Buckeye Scoop. If you like the podcast, you will love being on the message board. And we love giving these memberships to service members and first responders. We've added hundreds over the past year, and they're some of our best members, some of our best posters. And it's just such a blessing to have everybody there. And thank you so much for your generosity.
Yeah. Thank you, my man. Appreciate you, David. Buck Nasty, thank you for the 10. Thank you for being Ultra member as well. Any news from the recruiting trail? Well, the hard part about now is so much of the stuff is kind of done. There's not many hooks that are out there about people that are excited. Ever since David Sater's committed to Tennessee, it's just now Mark Pantoni and the staff, they're evaluating the guys that potentially could help fill out the class. But, there's just less. There's less of a need to go on a kid now that you're not sure on, because you don't know who is going to come available in the transfer portal. So, you only have so many scholarships. So if you want to give it to some kid who's a project, who might be a reach, and then all of a sudden you've got a kid that shows up in the portal. And again, obviously, you're going to lose kids off this team too. Again, let's just be real. This is just like the NFL. Like in the NFL, no roster on any NFL team is completely the same year over year. There's always guys that leave in free agency. There's guys that retire. There's guys that get cut. There's guys that get drafted, whatever. So that's how college football is now. It's just a natural part. You have a huge senior class that you're going to have to replenish. That's going to go. You're going to have some guys that potentially could declare early. But, I don't. The scholarships are just so much more valuable now than they used to be, because, again, you could have a guy like Quinshon Judkins who, if you go spin the clock back a year ago, at this time in the season, you're not thinking, well, maybe Quinshon Judkins will come to Ohio State. You're thinking that kid's going to go to Ole Miss and, be another second-time All-American and go off to the league and whatever. But he became available. So I think that, we might have a shot at Micah DeBose flipping the O-lineman from the South, a kid that grew up an Ohio State fan. They're still talking to him. There's the Preston Bowman kid. You've got the kids that were at one point seemingly locks, like Dorian Brew and Trey McNutt. But I just don't, like I said, if they want to go to Oregon, great, or Texas, great. But again, I let the season shake out and just see how things go, where things go, what happens, whatever, because there's always some shocking coaching moves that happen that people don't really see coming, that people can't project, that could potentially open up doors that looked like they were closed. Again, I always go back to the Chip Kelly leaving Oregon, going to Philadelphia. Dontre Wilson was locked and loaded to become an Oregon Duck. And all of a sudden, Dontre Wilson does not want to be an Oregon Duck. He doesn't want to play for Mark Helfrich, and he ends up coming to Ohio State. Now, again, at the time, Dontre was thought to be Percy Harvin, that kind of guy, and obviously that never materialized. But, that was a classic, keep recruiting the guy, keep him warm, and we'll see what happens. And again, now with the transfer portal, I think it's something where, you just keep recruiting the kids even once they're committed, and keep it warm just in case they ever aren't happy with where they're at. Because there's going to be bounce backs every year for kids that make mistakes. And it was funny. Cromani McLean, he was the number one corner in the country, which again, the SFE guys thought Cromani wasn't great. And he left Colorado because he wanted to play for a real program. So where does he go? The Florida Gators. So what's he told on Saturday when the Gators are off? He's watching the Colorado Buffaloes from the stands at Central Florida. So that guy left Colorado, which again, I think Colorado is kind of a clown car, but he went there to the Florida Gators, which is maybe the worst program in the country now for that level of prestige. They're abhorrent at this point. So, I don't know. But in short, I think that they're still working on Micah DeBose, and there's some other guys, that they're evaluating senior film, because that's what you do at this time of year. I mean, most of the recruiting gets done so early because all the officials are done. Like, that's the big difference is you don't have that big Michigan official weekend anymore, that big Iowa official visit weekend. Like, all the officials are knocked out in the summer so that they can just concentrate on ball now, which is great. Nevada, you probably don't have anything on the recruiting show. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, again, remember, we break everything on BuckeyeScoop.com, and I do actually have something, but it's involving a wide receiver that's taking a look at Ohio State, a guy that's previously committed elsewhere. And the J.J. Smith effect is real. I mean, he's the most heralded wide receiver. He's getting so much run all over college football, and any potential guy that's looking at other schools has got to look at what Ohio State's doing with J.J. Smith, what Ohio State's doing with their passing attack, and go, wow, I that's who I want to be. I want to be that guy, because J.J. Smith is him. And there is one guy in particular that's circling back on Ohio State, somebody that they might have missed on before that may be coming back on the radar. But check it out at BuckeyeScoop.com, and we'll have all the scoop on that.
I mean, that's, there's going to be guys that realize that they made mistakes. I feel bad for guys like Vernell Brown. Now, I know he's a legacy at Florida, but I just don't know how with a good conscience you could commit to go to the Florida Gators right now when you have no idea who the coach is going to be. And that'll be an attractive job, I'm sure, but that job is not for everybody. That's a tough job, especially when you've had Spurrier and Urban there. And, they were the juggernaut for, when Urban was at its peak. And now they're just, they can't get out of their own way. And like I said, it's not an easy gig with the Gators, especially when you've had two of the top, 10 or 15 coaches ever coach the game, in the shadow there. It's that's no fun. Don Schaefer, thank you for the 20. Hope you're good, my friend. Oh, here we go. I've been waiting a little bit of this. Thank you for being an Ultra member as well. Peacock's telecasts and commentary were atrocious this week. With all the broadcast money, the networks have promised how much more pay-per-view subscription format should we expect to see moving forward. A lot of fans aren't happy. Nevada OH. Well, I like Andrew Siciliano. He was on Red Zone, and it was atrocious that they got rid of him. But now he's the Browns play-by-play guy on their radio network, filling in for Jim Donovan, who's a legend, Jim Donovan. But I liked Andrew. I thought Colt McCoy was brutal. And it was like he'd never color commentated before. Like, again, I don't know what level he's on with NBC or what his regular rotation is, but those Peacock games, they want to have Ohio State on once because then they get a whole new swath of emails and credit cards and logins, and hopefully they forget to unsubscribe and blah, blah, blah. We've had Peacock because there's some stuff my kids like to watch on there, but it is... The thing that was shocking to me about Peacock was the fact that I couldn't rewind the game. And again, I don't know if my TV sucks, it's brand new Samsung or whatever it is, but I couldn't rewind the game. And it drove me crazy because I was like, I like to rewatch every play, not every play, but if there's a critical play and it's a commercial break, like I like to go back and rewind it, and it wouldn't let me rewind it. Which again, you can do that on YouTube, you can do that on any other format, DirecTV, whatever. But on Peacock, I couldn't rewind it and rewatch plays. Because again, when there's 3 minutes of commercials, I'd rather just go back and, if there's a play that I wanted to see again, go back and watch. So again, just me complaining, whining. But yeah, Peacock was terrible. It's just a pain because I have to run around to my house and make sure that I've got everything logged in, set up, whatever, as opposed to just being on YouTube TV. And then the thing that sucks the worst is if you guys don't have YouTube TV, the multi-view thing is the greatest thing ever because you can put 4 games on at once. So when it's on Peacock, you can't do that, obviously. So that sucks. But again, just my opinion. Nevada, Don Schaefer, again, thank you for the 20, my friend. It says Peacock's telecasts and commentary were atrocious this week. With all the broadcast money the networks have promised, how much more pay-per-view / subscription format should we expect to see moving forward? And I didn't really answer that, but I would say a bunch because I think Apple and I think Amazon are going to really get into this because, again, they have more money than the other networks, like way more money. So, if you want to go make a move, like, Amazon, you want to watch Thursday Night Football, man, you got to have Amazon Prime, period. And I think that that's going to be the way of the world going forward. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a combination of, over the air, Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, and then, the streaming services. So you'll probably have 7, 8 different outlets every year. And like you said, you're going to have to subscribe to every one of them in order to see every game for Ohio State. So is it a profit scheme? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a sign up and you're right. They hope they either like it and stay on or don't like it and forget and keep it. They're counting on it being hard to do that for people. And that's the world. And that's why, I know some sites are selling these boxes that can get you everything and every channel and every stuff. I don't know how that's legal, so I don't want to really be involved in that, but it's sure driving people, a lot in that direction. And it's definitely confusing. It's not just like the old days of, hey, is it on channel 2 or 4 or 7 or 11 or what? Part of my routine every week is typing in where can I watch the game and then checking to make sure that I've got that streaming service, which is a brave new world for me.
Yeah, and yeah, it's funny. I don't know how those things really. Well, they're not. I mean, these shinies like black boxes that people are. They're prevalent. They're all over the place. But yeah, they're definitely not legal. But yeah, I know a lot of people weren't happy with it because again, it's hard to find. And again, if you're not, I'm not the most textile person in the world, but I'm sure that there's people out there that couldn't find the game or they had to go to a bar because they didn't have Peacock. They didn't know how to do Peacock. They didn't want to subscribe to Peacock. I always think of some of the older folks, and they're not really super great at trying to figure out how to download a new app and upload the stuff, and maybe they just don't want to do it. So again, you lose viewers on that, but it's not going anywhere. We'll have a Peacock game until the end of this contract because again, every time Ohio State plays, people in Ohio want to watch it, and that's a whole new swath of emails. It's the same reason why 247 and On3 and some of these, lesser Ohio State websites, they run coupon codes and 1 free month for $1 because they want your information and they want to hope that you forget to cancel. So, I got a free month for $1, then you forget and you get charged the full boat the next month. So again, that's the same thing with Peacock. They hope that you sign up for the free trial and your credit card information's in there and then you forget about it, then you're popped for $12 or whatever it is. So again, it's not, those companies that make billions of dollars down to millions like with those networks. There's a reason why they want that. They want your information. Madam's Prime Entertainment, thank you for the 5. That Emeka block reminded me of the Spencer block for Zeke. We won big when we didn't play great at first. What do you two think this is meaning for us, Nevada OH? I think that like the team obviously wishes they probably would have started a little faster, especially defensively. But no, it's a tale of two halves. And again, it goes either way. Like there's been games where we've started off, impossibly fast, everything's clicking, and then we've kind of slogged through the third and fourth quarter. And then there's some games where you start off not great, and then you turn up in the second half, and you still get that margin of victory. I mean, honestly, that's probably a game where you probably feel better in the end if you start slow and finish fast as opposed to start fast and finish slow. But I like I said, I like that we had this road test. It was a night game. not a super hostile environment. I mean, I talked to people who went to the game, and they said Michigan State fans they're pretty good. Like, they're not just completely abhorrent like Wisconsin or Iowa or so. Again, I mean, Iowa, man. Again, and I mean this sincerely. So we have a ton of people that are Iowa fans that listen to the show because everybody hates Michigan. So when we do our Michigan shows, we get a ton of people from throughout the Big Ten. So I don't mind when fan bases are nasty and vicious and vile, because I like those environments. Those are my favorite. Like, those are way better than playing in Bloomington or West Lafayette or some of the, those little armpit stadiums. Like, I like playing at Kinnick, and I like playing at, I never got, the one stadium that I never got to play in, well, the two that I never played in, I never got to play at Indiana, I never got to play at Camp Randall, which, again, that's the one that sucks. I got to coach there, I never got to play there. But I played everywhere else, played at Kinnick, played at Beaver Stadium, played at Big House. I like the big, loud, nasty places better than the average, mediocre places like Michigan State, Purdue, Indiana, those types. So, but the Michigan State folks they're much more hospitable than most. But they also know that we're probably going to beat them to death that night, so it's not nearly as nasty as I think if they felt like they really had a chance. Because if you look at the scores the last few years, they've just been bludgeonings since the Mark D'Antonio era ended. Really, it was like ever since they signed Mel Tucker, that huge contract extension after he beat Michigan one time, it was like, I mean, that same week we beat them like 60-3 or something crazy, because that was in the shoe. I mean, they just signed an $84 million deal and then went out and just beat the dog out of them. So, but like I said, I think this is a team of destiny. I really do. I think that they've got a lot of great pieces, and I think that Will Howard is the guy that is the straw that serves the drink, and he is a guy that, again, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly trust him. The trust is enhancing and increasing every week. He's the guy that gets more and more input on not the game plan, but when you're Chip Kelly, you want to know from Will Howard's, from his mouth to your ears, what are plays that you like, that you feel comfortable about? What are your favorite throws? What are your favorite openers? What are things you get in rhythm? That doesn't mean, like, Will Howard's not calling the game, but, it gives Chip Kelly a lot more input and credence as to how he wants to call the game. If he does it, hey, I'm going to call something that Will loves to throw. It's maybe something for JJ or whatever, some easy throw, maybe a hard, whatever. Hey, coach, why don't you run me in the red residence? Whatever. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of little anecdotes that you get from the quarterback rooms. So we used to have a quarterback meeting. They usually have one on Thursday or Friday in the morning. They run through the film, go through the openers, go through what they want to do. And again, like, Will Howard is gaining a lot of trust in that room from Ryan and Chip. And I think it's really good for Ohio State moving forward. Nevada, your thoughts. Madamus Prime Entertainment, aka ZZM. He says, what? That Emeka Egbuka block, and I think he means the one on the scoop sweep where he's kind of in the lead blocking, he flattened that linebacker. Reminded him of the Spencer block for Zeke. We won big when we didn't play great at first. What do you think that means for us? What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, I thought there was a lot of great blocking on the X. I mean, again, in my rewatch, and I've rewatched the game probably 3 or 4 times and watched the highlights again, and man, you were getting great blocks on the outside, all over the field. Those guys were blocking it. They have gotten the message. The message has been delivered. If the story of last year was indifferent blocking from the wide receivers, well, now they are blocking like demons on the outside, and as a result, we're getting. I think we're number 1 in the country in explosive plays, but it was everybody. It was Carnell. It was Emeka. It was Ennis. It was JJ. JJ threw a beautiful block. Came in from the outside and sealed. I think it was on Trey Henderson's 30-yard run. So those guys are playing fearlessly, playing selflessly, and I give all the credit in the world to Brian Hartline and to Chip Kelly for getting those guys doing it right. Because Brian was a ferocious blocker and great special teams player, but those wide receivers are getting it done this year, and kudos to them.
Yeah, and honestly, kudos to Chip Kelly. Kudos to Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly called out the receivers, called out Brian Hartline, and guess what? Magic, we're blocking now. Because again, Corey Dennis didn't have that power. The guys that we had on staff last year didn't have that power. I think that there was, I don't want to say there were some bad examples or bad role models. But again, like that stuff, when you watch the film from practice or from a game, and you see that stuff like where guys are just and they're just lazy. I mean, they're just being. I mean, these guys. You got guys that are big, like guys like Marvin. Marvin's a big, strong, hulking dude, and he just didn't block. Like he just refused to block. And again, I don't know if he was making a business decision or what it was, but there were just times where he just looked like completely disinterested in being a part of the team. And again, you go back and watch that slant against Michigan that he ran. That was the laziest slant I've ever seen in my life at Ohio State. And again, of course, we throw a pick. Of course, he gets run. But again, that's a microcosm of last year's team where you had guys that made business decisions. Now, again, is Marvin one of the greatest receivers ever played at Ohio State? Of course. Am I being a big meanie by saying that he gave questionable effort on some plays? I don't really care because I'm right. So again, that I think that he's gone. Chip Kelly shows up. You don't have guys with as much clout as Marvin. Emeka has always been a decent blocker, but again, I just felt like that was part of the culture. And again, that's what you put on tape. You watch these guys, and again, the guys that it sucks for honestly are guys like Trey Henderson because again. You could get completely free through the line and have a great chance for a nice breakaway, which again, those breakaway runs those are electrifiers of the entire team, especially on the road. You break a long run on the road for 67 yards and the whole defense is energized. The offense gets to get off the field. The little sections of Ohio State fans is going crazy. It's it's a beautiful thing. But when our receivers don't block the safeties, then it doesn't happen. So again, like magically we're getting all these explosive plays because magically, all of our perimeter guys are blocking now because magically Chip Kelly came in and Chip does not give an F about anything else. He wants those guys to block because, again, good offensive coaches love big, gaudy statistics on offense. And again, a lot of that comes from the running game. And the running game is something where when you go on the road or it's bad weather, and again, you don't want to be a snatch like Gene Smith and be soft and say, oh, well, it's too cold and too rainy and too windy and we better go play in a dome. Like, you got to pack your running game. So, again, get these guys ready to go. Because, I mean, we might play Oregon. It might rain at Oregon. So then what? What, are you going to just cancel the game? To say, hey, well, let's go play in Vegas at Allegiant Stadium? No, you got to go play the game. So, again, the running game. And again, I think this wide receiver room is demonstrably tougher because of the addition of J.J. Smith and Ennis getting more time. I think Ennis is a devastating kid. He's a blocker. He's tough. He's a trash talker. I think Carnell is quietly becoming one of the best players in the country as well. He's just quiet, and again, when you live in the shadow of JJ, like he's Godzilla, it's hard to stand next to Godzilla and people pay attention to you. But Carnell's really good, and he does everything. He does everything right. Like Carnell's going to be a 15-year NFL guy. You'll look up and he'll just have ungodly. Cardell's kind of like Michael Jenkins, where nobody realized how good Michael Jenkins was, but Mike Jenkins played like 15 years in the league or 14 years in the league, and you look up and he was a first-round pick, and that's the kind of guy Carnell's going to be. He's just quiet, great kid. You can't root harder for a kid than you do Carnell Tate. But again, I thought it was a culture problem in the building last year with the blocking, and it was selfish. Because again, like these running backs. They need the receivers to block, or else you're not going to get those big gaudy runs. Because again, you notice like suddenly we're getting all these explosives that aren't just bombs to Marvin Harrison. Now you're getting explosives on tunnel screens, explosives in the running games. Those didn't exist last year, like barely at all. And that's with Trey Henderson, who's one of the best running backs in the history of the program, not being able to get loose because we didn't block the secondary guys. All right, Ian Bates, thanks for the deuce. Time to have an honest, Sonny Styles conversation. Nevada, I will let you start this one.
I mean,
Come flying in here. I feel
like I've been about as honest and direct about Sonny as anybody can be. I love Sonny. His dad was one of my favorite players growing up. I was so excited when he committed. Wasn't crazy about reclassifying because I'm just not a big fan of reclassifying, but was excited to have him at Ohio State, and I'm in awe of his athletic ability. But right now his linebacker play is just I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, he's a 4. That's just my opinion. And that's not trying to be Mr. Mean, and I'm not trying to. But I mean, I think I've been about as honest about Sonny as any human being can be. I want him to be good. and I'm waiting for him to be impactful, but he's neither good nor impactful yet. Yeah, I know he recovered a fumble, on a play he was trailing, and I know I think he got a sack. So maybe I'm being too harsh in terms of that, but in terms of just the everyday type of plays that I like to see out of my linebacker, not seeing enough of. He just seems to be a step slow in reacting, and I like him better close to the line. I like him going forward. I hate to keep using this as like a tired cliche, but I like the Baron Browning type of position for him. I'd love to see him as a rush end or a blitz linebacker because I think he's really good at that. I think that's when he's more fluid, is when he's going forward and attacking. I think when he's sitting back and reading, reacting, he's just not as good. So that's about as honest an assessment as I can give.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see if he did that. Now, again, you got to want to do that. I mean, because when you go playing that edge, man, I mean, you're getting touched by 310-pound tackles every play. So it's not for. I don't say it's not for Sonny. I think Sonny's plenty good enough to do that, and he's got the length and the arm length where I think he'd be a really good pass rusher if he if he trained it. The hard part is he's been. I think, if you go back and you're honest about reclassifying, it's probably a mistake. Just because, when these kids reclassify, they go from being the best player in the country on their high school team to being a backup. And he played early in spots. 2 years ago when he was a true freshman that should have been a high school senior. But you don't play a lot of football in that position. You don't play a lot of football the whole season. Again, it was the same with Quinn Ewers. Like, Quinn Ewers gave up being starting quarterback at South Lake Carroll his senior year, and he would have played 15 games, probably won a state title, and instead, he comes to Ohio State and he's like playing the scout team, and he's not doing any, not traveling, he's not playing games. So, the thing is, you miss a lot of reps that you would get from naturally playing in the game. Now, again, if his high school coach is going to play him at safety, which is probably what he'd been doing, like, I don't know if that helps him play linebacker, because I think that, Sonny's position switching it's difficult. Like, when you've never played linebacker before, it's tough. Like, again, it's like me going from playing tight end in high school to playing tackle. I never had to pass block as a tight end. Obviously, I was out in routes unless we had a 6 or 7 man protection. But, I had to learn how to pass block. And again, that took time. It took a year and a half to just learn the technique, get used to it, get used to stopping guys with a kick slide, vertical set. I mean, it's a very awkward motion. And I think that reading keys and trusting yourself and studying film and being able to be reactive and instinctive at linebacker, instincts are everything at linebacker. And again, when you're playing that close to everything, like, are your eyes playing tricks on you? Can you fire your gun and go get it? I don't know. Like I said, I think that, Sonny, he's coming along. Again, it's his first year at linebacker. So I think that he's got, a bright future. Again, physically, he's as good as we've ever had. Bigger, stronger, 40-inch vertical, 6'6", whatever. I mean, he's humongous. But, is he going to get to the point where he's, like when he showed up here, we're thinking top 15 pick, and is he going to get there? Because again, that's the thing that I think will happen. And, I like I said, he's a guy that if I ran the defense, I would run something with a lot of coverage back, and I would blitz him early in the game, just get him involved, see if he can go affect the quarterback. Even if it gives something up early in the game, I would just go get him involved. You go try to hit somebody. Because if you blitz Sonny on and you can get him free on a running back, like, I don't know what running back in the world is going to block Sonny Styles when he's that big with that kind of arm length. He's going to truck any dude out there. But again, I think that's a way to get him involved and get him active and get his confidence. Because again, I don't know where his confidence is. I don't know where his head is. Because again, he's not used to. The fan base, the fan base is very fickle. And as people know, our fans eat their own. They will turn on you, man. And like, there's a lot of undercurrent about Sonny throughout the fan base right now. Again, I like Sonny. I'm high on Sonny. But, our fan base they will eat you alive because this is what they do. So again, I think that I'd have him attacking, rushing, blitzing, be the featured guy on the blitz where he's the guy that can get home and take the quarterback down. Just to get, maybe get the confidence spiked a little bit. But again, that's just me. I mean, what do I know? I only lived it, but just my opinion. All right, Nevada, good show tonight. We can wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
No, just officiating terrible in the Big Ten.
Terrible.
Big Ten and SEC starting to flex on everybody else, and Ohio State team just getting better every week, man. Getting not perfect. They will not be perfect. They will make mistakes. They will, probably play a close game at some point. Heck, they might even lose one along the way. But this is a really good team that's improving every week, and they're going to be a tough outcome come playoff time. So don't waste the whole season waiting for it, guys. Enjoy it. It's already a third over, and these things end too soon.
Yeah, and the thing about this team is once the season's over, you don't ever get to watch them again. So you better enjoy it now because they're not running it back next year, folks. So I'm going to enjoy the season as much as any human being possibly can. That being said, if you guys enjoy this content, I appreciate you guys as always. Please leave us a like on your way out the door. Click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. If you want to do something fantastic, search for us on Apple Podcasts. Type in Buckeye Scoop. Click subscribe. That is huge for us. It's completely free. It'll take you 7.5 seconds to do. And it'll make my night. It'll be really something cool. If you want to leave us a cool review, 5-star review, that'd be great. Also do that on Spotify. You can do it across all 3 platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all completely free, and they all help us out tremendously. So you could probably subscribe to all of them in less than a minute. So appreciate you guys for all you guys do. A shout out to my Southern Ohio boys. Shout out to all my people watching all over the world. And we're thinking about any of you that were caught in this horrific hurricane, especially the people down in Asheville, down in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, wherever this thing hit. If it touched you, I just hope that you guys are safe. I really do. And I hope that you guys are getting the help that you guys need. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. We'll see you tomorrow at 7. Go Bucks.